Mini episode 1338 of the FDH Lounge is brought to you by Sportsology, delivering unconventional columns and webcasts about sports, TV, music, movies, and more. Follow them on the web at sportsology.com.
The FDH Lounge. You'll want to schedule your life around it.
A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to FDH Lounge Mini Episode 1338. This is FDH Managing Partner Rick Morris here, and it is a tradition on this show every year to talk about WrestleMania. And for the last couple of years, we have been oh so privileged to be able to break down WrestleMania with one of my good friends in the world of programs here, the great Jake Digman, FDH Lounge Dignitary, and a gentleman who knows a thing or two about the squared circle announcing its side. Greatest MMA ring announcer in the world, as I always say. And thankfully, Jake, you are not one of these MMA types who gets butthurt about pro wrestling because people, dumb people, sometimes confuse the two. You have a love of both, and I respect that about you.
Wait, we're talking WrestleMania today?
We're talking WrestleMania, yes.
Oh, that's it. I'm drinking.
You might as well. I mean, it's a WrestleMania. It's a tradition to talk WrestleMania, I should say, on this show. And this one here, I mean, looking at this both nights thrown together. I know you've said off air, oh, well, you know, for as much as we criticize them for relying on the part-timers, look at how bereft of star power it looks otherwise. And maybe there's some of that. But look, with the job that they have done trying to push Roman Reigns over the last several years, Drew McIntyre over the last year, Bobby Lashley as of the last, 90 days or so, et cetera, up and down the line here. It's not like they haven't tried to push a number of these guys as being big stars. There is no excuse for not having their own star power at this point. And in a way, Jake, I feel it almost validates the criticisms we made at the time about using them as crutches. Because what happens when, for one reason or another, you don't have them around anymore? And this year, they don't have any of them around. Next year, they'll probably bring back a bunch, but this year they don't. So this is what happens when you condition people to believe the only guys that matter are Goldberg, Brock Lesnar, and John Cena.
Oh, man, don't say that. They're going to drag Goldberg out of the mothballs, aren't they?
They are. Probably against Drew McIntyre. They'll count on us forgetting it.
I don't know. Whoever the new internet darling is, that's who Goldberg will come out and destroy.
Probably,
but
yeah.
I completely agree with your assessment on that, and we were talking about it off the air, that, you know, you look at it, it's you can't have your cake and eat it too. And unfortunately, the WWE in this case has no one to blame other than themselves, in my opinion.
Yep. Because
you had all of this time, and you did build up characters, and even the characters that you did build up during this time, a lot of them aren't even being used, or they're just being put into thrown together situations, as I'm sure we'll cover going down the line. Like myself personally, we just discussed this off the air. One of the biggest names missing off the card is Bayley, who was, SmackDown Women's Champion for a long time. But let's also not forget that even if you're not on the card, a lot of times they have, those segments, and they have, we saw Elias do interact with John Cena several years. We saw, we've seen when Hulk Hogan came out with Alexa Bliss or whatever. So they find certain ways to get talent off the card, even if they don't have a match, which I know how much you love the fluff. I mean, so there's a way that could happen. And I'm sure you never know. We might see Bayley involved in a match. I'm sure we'll get into that as we talk about the card going forward.
Well, there could be segments here conceivably where maybe you see Ted DiBiase chase someone backstage, or the boogeyman kick away a basketball before somebody can get the 10. Wait, what? So there are these possibilities that you could see these things materialize. But yeah, you mentioned Bayley, and I mentioned to you off air, Carmella. She's somebody they've pushed a lot over the last year. You couldn't put together Bayley and Carmella in the tag team turmoil match. You're going to automatically just decide, no, that's too many of them. And this whole thing here too of where they're trying to say that the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal being moved to SmackDown somehow constitutes the first WrestleMania match. Yeah, no, sorry. It's not even on the same day. It's not in the same place. It's in your canned Thunderdome. So that's the excuse for not having the likes of, and I'm just going off the top of my head based on who's been excluded from this card, but I mean, the Street Profits come to mind, and I can't, actually, they have so few people who are over and matter in any kind of a way. I'm not thinking of too many others. Buddy Murphy, the Mysterios, maybe?
Everybody in that fatal four-way tag team match, which is, it is, the Street Profits, it's Gable and Otis, the Mysterios, and the Dirty Dogs, as they are, Ziggler and the glorious Robert Roode. I would have bet money from 2 weeks ago that you would have seen some variation of this match at WrestleMania, only so they could put the tag team titles on the Mysterios and call it a WrestleMania moment, because that's what they live for, those moments, and
right.
Father and son together as champion. It's just the kind of thing that Vince would do to create a WrestleMania thing. But what I've got a feeling is they're going to win the tag team titles tomorrow night, and then they're going to say it. Because WWE has no problem with revisionist history, so they're going to go forward. They're just going to say that the Mysterios won the belt at WrestleMania, even though that's if they do, even though they didn't.
Yeah, I mean,
but they'll just say in history, like, yeah, they won at WrestleMania SmackDown. Like, what? That's not a thing.
Yeah, I'd totally forgotten that match was even taking place on SmackDown, which shows you how plugged in I am and how much I care and give a crap about everything they got going on here. There will be no NXT touches on the show this year, as the standalone, which is ongoing actually as we tape now, the 2 days of NXT Stand and Deliver. I missed day one, but so I'll have to watch all of this subsequently, to use a word my brother loves to use. But Walter versus Ciampa, I understand that lived up to all of the hype.
Fantastic.
Okay. Honestly, that's the one match the whole week I was looking forward to. I mean, it.
Yeah, it definitely lived up to your expectations. But I mean, look on the billing. You got Walter, who is, if he's not my favorite wrestler right now, he's definitely in my top five.
Sure.
That are, maybe one or two that are currently active going right now. And then Ciampa brings the goods every single time he's in there. So, that one was a lot of fun. And actually, what I did yesterday, because of the power of technology, I had watched the AEW live broadcast, and then Peacock, the cock as we call it, Peacock had the commercial-free NXT up almost like immediately after their.
That's amazing.
So that was nice.
That's great.
That was nice.
Oh wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I gotta check that out.
Hopefully everything goes good with with the stream for WrestleMania tomorrow as well. So after we get done talking, I'm gonna watch some Law and Order SVU, the new show with Stabler on it, and then watch watch night number 2.
Well, let me ask you this, and in terms of something, and for anybody in our audience that hasn't seen this yet either. I will say, again, two years ago, and you and I did the breakdown of WrestleMania week from when you were in New York and how great that was. I said the one match the entire week I was looking forward to the most, common denominator time, Walter v. Pete Dunne, and it lived up to it. That's one of my favorite matches in recent years. How does this match stack up, Walter Ciampa versus Walter Pete Dunne, in your opinion?
It's right up there.
Okay.
I mean, it's really hard. It's really hard to have a bad Walter match.
Okay.
Like, especially when he has his dancing shoes on. It's very, very hard to have a bad Walter match, and this was no exception.
Oh boy.
It's what you expect to have with these two. It delivered in spades, in my opinion.
Oh, now I really can't wait. I gotta see what that one looks like. That was the match 2 years ago that actually started Walter's run as NXT UK champion. It's a run that's been prolonged by, of course, the pandemic and the fact that NXT UK was on a prolonged hiatus last year and is only just slowly starting to kind of grind back into gear here. Before we get into night one of Mania, let's just touch on this that we talked about a little bit off air as well, and that is the big contrast between Mania Week 2 years ago, where you were there in New York, and there was all the indie shows, and you were there being a part of filming some of them and taking them all in, and that was your typical Mania Week show going back to, at least probably 06, 05, when Ring of Honor started and a lot of these other ones started around it, and it's become an entire week-long indie festival. Last year, of course, you had WrestleMania in a warehouse, essentially, and no other things happening around it. And then 2020
with one giant fan.
With one giant fan, and then I almost feel like the theme for 2021 is 2021 only half as lame as 2020, because the pandemic is still ongoing. Thankfully, we're in the final stages, but like WrestleMania, they're going to have 25,000 people there. I don't know if they're going to have the cardboard cutouts too or not, but it's going to be some of that. But this is an atmosphere where we are not going to have any of the indie shows happening around it. Of all things, you are going to have AEW with a Friday night house show, which is unusual in Jacksonville, and that's not even in the immediate vicinity. But WrestleMania without any of the other things happening here. This is a WrestleMania week like last year that's going to stand out as being different from the ones before it and the ones after it.
Well, not to disagree, but to correct you a little bit, there is some stuff going on around
Really?
it.
Okay.
Not to the level it was before. Yeah, our good friend of the show, Mike Moran, is actually down there filming the GCW, The Collective.
Okay, my bad.
Weekend. Yeah, he actually was funny. He actually texted me, and he first of all, he apologized that he couldn't have me on the crew because there was the budget or whatever for it. I don't know. And he said, I feel really bad, but I can offer you free tickets to WrestleMania. And I'm like, don't feel bad for something I wasn't expecting to do.
Sure.
Don't feel bad,
right.
Know? But he's down there right now. I believe it's the Josh Barnett Bloodsport that's going on right now. There's I think it's 14 shows over the course of a couple days.
Oh, 14? That many? Crap, where have I been?
Don't quote me on that. I know it's I know it's 4 or 5 a day over 3 or 4 days.
Holy crap, my bad.
Yeah. There's they're all on the Fight app. But then again, there hasn't been a lot of advertisement as in years past.
Right.
And they haven't even sold out WrestleMania both nights. I don't know how they're expecting to sell. I mean, sure, out of those 25,000 people that are going or whatever it is, you're going to have some people that are your diehards are going to go see whatever wrestling is on. But by no means is it going to be anything compared to New York a couple years ago, where I think I counted, including all of the WWE events, that included if there was matches at Access, or they had those World Collide tournament. I think it came out to 56 wrestling shows
right.
in 7 days that took place.
Right.
That is sensory overload if there is such a thing.
Well, yeah, and that's what's funny is me being off as much as I was with there being 14. That 14 is still nothing compared to 56. So I'm still more right than wrong, which is incredible. But
yeah,
there's
still other ones that are going on too that I don't know that are the rogue. I'm sure there's those rogue outlaw shows that are happening too that aren't on.
Or are they, Jake Digman? Are indie mud shows? Oh, I'm sorry, that's Jacksonville Friday night, right? According to Cornette.
According to Corny, yeah. Outlaw Mud Show up there.
That's right. You're going to have that happening. And what a week. And then, of course, the Hall of Fame this week with RVD, Citizen Kane going in the Hall of Fame, the NWO, etc. So it was still some semblance of a Hall of Fame thing for WrestleMania week. Taking place days prior, which is out of the ordinary. It had a lot of times been the night prior, but that has long since been changed due to the WrestleMania week changes. WrestleMania, of course, last year becoming a 2-day event. We'll see if that sticks in future years, but previously there had been NXT on Saturday nights.
I hope so. I hope they stick for a 2-day event. I really do, because it's just too damn long.
It is.
You start, if you get in for the pre-show matches are at 5 o'clock and you're going to leave until midnight, sometimes 12:30, that's just, I don't know. That's just way too much. I remember being at the one a couple of years ago, 35 in New York, and by the end of it, I'm like, looking over to Mike Moran, actually, and when they botched the finish, I'm like, we waited 6.5 hours for a botched finish?
Right.
That's terrible.
And that's the whole thing too. And I've always maintained this, that the way they did it was all wrong. Because again, I was watching it live. It was after midnight when the main event started. I mean, on a Sunday night, nobody's ready for this kind of crap. You know what I mean? The place, the mood was dead heading into it. And that was one of those things where, and I know they wanted to do it where Becky, the blue collar hero, she's getting her regular entrance while the others are doing these fancy entrances. I say to hell with that. You needed to wake up the crowd. And that's a thing where that should have been. And if they could have kept this under wraps enough. Becky's backstage. She goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Killers." And they play that version of the man. You think that would have woke up the stadium, dude? Y'all would have been singing along to that thing. You would have been fully awake when that match started.
Possibly, or the people, you gotta remember, these are wrestling fans. They would look and went, "What's this song? I don't want this. I want her regular song."
Yeah, true, but I mean, nobody ever complains. But nobody.
I only say this because I was at the WrestleMania when Drowning Pool played the live version of Triple H's song.
Okay.
That he never used on TV, and everyone, it actually diminished any reaction he would have gotten because everyone's like, "This sucks." Like, which I like the song, but it wasn't what the crowd wanted to hear.
True,
So,
but I mean,
and wrestling fans are like trained to hear like a certain like dun dun. Now, if she had the Killers do her song, which would make no sense, but
they couldn't play her song. No, yeah, that would be the worst of both worlds. Maybe I'm just stereotyping too much about, but like white people go ape shit when they hear that song, and that crowd is mostly white people. You know, it's not quite a white.
Are we doing a deep cut Dave Chappelle reference here?
Basically, yeah. I mean,
white people hear electric guitar, they gotta dance.
Exactly. They start. You get the Killers out there. They start playing a live version of the man, and I just think you would have had 80,000 people or however many, whatever the kayfabe number is. Y'all would have been singing along. But what do I know? Meanwhile, it's going to be.
But you also got to look at it too. We just had Joan Jett like right before that perform live.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing though. I mean, Becky is the franchise babyface. Shouldn't hers be way better? And it would have been, with all due respect to Joan Jett, okay? That would have been way better. Anybody knows this. The Joan Jett stuff is pretty played out. I mean, you know, Becky should have had something to really overshadow that. I think if that's your big franchise babyface, that's what you want to do. That's just a thought that I've had over a period of time. Not that they would have.
I thought it would have been really cool. If when Becky came out, she came out on like a steam punk train.
Yeah.
Like a train basically came out, and steam goes off, and you can just build it up. Like, what is this? Is it like Strowman? But he wasn't a train back then.
Well,
and all of a sudden, then once it comes out, and then all of a sudden she rises up, so it parks on the bottom, and the steam goes off, and then she rises up from underneath, like she's the conductor, and then her music hits, and everybody goes crazy.
Except
to that effect, and people like, yay!
Except with Morrow being gone, nobody on the announcing crew is cool enough to make insider references like, "Oh my God, Becky got her steam back. That must be more sponsor money," you know. So.
And you talk about a dude who's making the rounds, Mauro Ranallo, now the voice of Bellator MMA.
Yeah.
This guy's just going everywhere. He's Showtime Boxing, Bellator, WWE. Crazy.
Without having seen what happened last night, I could discern from a suggested video that popped up on YouTube today that Io Shirai lost last night because they were showing what appeared to be a send-off from the NXT fans. And like most people, anytime I see anything Io Shirai, we all do the voice, don't we? The genius of a sky, Io Shirai! That is just the best.
Mamma mia!
Fans, you just got your Mauro Ranallo WrestleMania fix right there. Jake Digman and I were your hookup. we're shooting.
Holler if you hear me.
Yeah, shooting it right into the veins. But this card Saturday night, night one of this thing here. Again, you have any number of matches here. As I said, I think there's only two matches that really count when you're looking at. Because a lot of times I like to look at cards throughout history and kind of diagram, like you have your main event. How many quasi-main events did you have? Semi-main events? Did you have one? Was it a good enough card where it was two? Sometimes there's three. Past WrestleManias, there have been sometimes, multiple semi-main events. Night one, I'm going to rule out the 5 matches right here. Tag Team Turmoil, that ain't one of them. Lana and Naomi versus Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose versus the Riot Squad versus Natalya and Tamina. Winners get a tag team title match the next night. Who cares? Cesaro versus Seth Rollins. Just like any smart mark out there, I'm happy to see Cesaro getting a push, but it's kind of typical WWE style, right? It's come out of nowhere. I don't watch SmackDown that closely because it still bores the piss out of me, but I mean, what's the explanation for the fact that Cesaro has suddenly, in their eyes, gotten good? I don't really understand that.
Are you ready?
What is it? What is it?
Seth Rollins came back from having a baby.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, I'm back, and I had a baby. And everyone's like, yay,
Jake,
you had a baby.
Jake,
You're a nice guy now.
He looks in phenomenal shape for just having had a baby.
Doesn't he? He's
yes.
really, we need the man to stop being lazy and get back to work, too. But so he comes out there, and then all of a sudden, everyone leaves because he cuts his, usual Seth Rollins "I am CrossFit Jesus" promo.
Right.
And then Cesaro's the last one left, and then the instant feud happened, and they punched each other. And to their credit, they kept them apart. And quite frankly, everyone has kind of wanted Cesaro to get an opportunity like this. Against Rollins is one of their top guys. They said the WWE views him.
Right.
Multiple-time champion. Cesaro definitely could use a huge win on a big stage like this against Rollins, which means Rollins is probably going to win.
Yeah, probably. Because
Cesaro will go back to a tag team with whomever they find.
Yeah, probably. But that's where it's like, and this is one of these things, though. I refuse to be a half a loaf kind of a guy because there's a lot of people that be like, Ricky, just be happy they're pushing them. I'm like, could they maybe have it make a little more sense, though? Could you make it a little bit more? I know they're allergic to the word organic, but could you make anything you do in any form or fashion seem organic? I mean, yeah, I'm glad to have them in a feud with Seth Rollins where, again, as much as we're laughing about it, unless they're even more incompetent than I think, Cesaro's going to go over. But I don't know. I'd like to see it with more steam behind it, maybe. I don't know. But as far as this next match, though, you talk about thrown together Braun Strowman, Shane McMahon in a steel cage match. Boy, this makes the Shane McMahon Undertaker Hell in a Cell buildup from a couple of years look positively organic by comparison. So this is just, Shane turns heel again. He's calling Braun a dummy up and down. He's throwing goo on him. And again, with it being a steel cage match, I know they probably did that to swerve everybody that thought Shane was going off the pirate ship. But something tells me he's going off the pirate ship anyways.
Probably. And here's a random fun factoid. This is the first steel cage match at WrestleMania since Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy at WrestleMania 2.
Wow. That's right, because we're not counting Hell in a Kennel, right? Okay.
No, that is a separate thing.
Okay.
This is a regular old steel cage match.
First
time they've had one since WrestleMania 2.
First one since '86? Are you kidding me? Okay.
86, yep.
Well, and here's the thing, Jake. Is there anything that encapsulates modern WWE more than that? The first one since WrestleMania 2 should be something that means something, as opposed to, we need a stip for this match so people won't yawn through it or take a piss break. Let's make it a cage match. Typical WWE.
I mean, the whole idea of making this match a cage match doesn't make any sense in the concept of the feud. It's like, okay, the reason why we watch Shane McMahon matches is so he falls off of something. So the whole idea of the match should be like, I figured this would be your Falls Count Anywhere, where Shane's running for his life, and then whoever you need to get on the show, which is probably what's going to happen, is, the lackeys will be in there, they'll break in the cage or whatever, people will help Shane, and the ref will go down and he'll leave, and it's going to be nonsense.
It's going to be.
At the end of the day, Braun Strowman's going over because no McMahon ever wins at WrestleMania unless they're facing another McMahon, or if their last name is Helsley McMahon.
Right. And, you can't say there's no part-timers, I guess, if Shane McMahon is in here, but certainly not the star power of other part-timers that they've had. And
they had to fill that McMahon quota.
They did.
At least one McMahon per WrestleMania.
Well, yeah, exactly. Which includes Triple H, by the way. The fact that he's not on the card, he certainly counts as a McMahon since he's a McMahon in-law at this point. If you're 2
years in a row.
Yeah, true. So he's certainly getting phased out at the very least. He's not done, but he just, it won't be every year for him, clearly.
I read a really funny story about Triple H. He did a quote about it was thing about how apparently AJ Styles keeps pestering Triple H
Yes.
for a match at WrestleMania
Yes.
to the point where it's annoying him. He keeps telling him to go away
Right.
because he doesn't want to have to get in shape to do it.
Right.
And I really just want to imagine like AJ Styles walking around being like, Hunter, are you going to face me at WrestleMania or what? Want some? Come get some. Won't be done.
You know what?
By the way, the earth is flat.
You know what? If I'm Triple H, I know how to put an end to that. The next time he does it, you reach for a golden shovel and you say, "Sure you still want it, AJ?"
That's great, pal. I love it.
Exactly. By the way, I don't know if you can call this guy a part-timer. He's been more full-time than some of their full-timers. Bad Bunny. Teaming up with Damian Priest in the swerve that we all saw coming. It's going to be a tag match after all, not Big Bunny v. Miz, or Bad Bunny. Big Bunny, Bad Bunny, whatever. I'm too old to know one from the other. Bad Bunny and Damian Priest.
Bugs Bunny?
Yeah, Bugs Bunny. The Miz and Morrison in a tag match. And it just... whatever, again, this is, I mean, the one thing that can be said potentially in any of this is it does seem like Damian Priest is getting something of a rub from being around Bad Bunny. And that's a guy where, I mean, I do see him going forward. And it's not just the one, quasi-finishing maneuver of his or finishing maneuver, but I think they see some modern-day Razor Ramon in the guy. So, I mean, he should be a fixture at least upper mid-card and above. So, I mean, he has a chance to be one guy that they succeed in building to a certain level. Presumably, this will be part of it. That's as close as I can come to say anything nice about this mess of a match.
I mean, I'm always a fan of the Miz, of the local boy. And I think he's made the most chicken salad out of the chicken shit that he's been given. But, you mentioned Bad Bunny. Got to throw in there the leading merchandise mover in the WWE.
Really?
He that merch, man. Yeah, he was after the debut. It's not our scene because we're old, but and the kids, those YouTube followers, he has quite a few. I don't know how many he has, millions, like 40 million or something like that. And after they debuted some of his stuff, it was the number one merchandise seller. He was the number one merchandise seller on WWE Shop. So that's why they keep bringing him around and having him a part of this. And I mean, I think this will serve its purpose. It's it's a celebrity match. He's going to be able to do some stuff. At the end of the day, it's going to end with Bad Bugs, Super Bunny getting Miz, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Which, in my opinion, it's like that guy was the WWE champion 6 weeks ago. So wait a minute. You just defeated the guy who was the former champion. So does that mean Bad Bunny would be on line for a title shot? Because to see Lashley absolutely destroy Bad Bunny would be quite entertaining to watch. But let's not give the WWE any more ideas. They have enough of them.
Well,
they come up with. I know there's one guy there who comes with some good ideas, but I think they locked him in a closet in Connecticut somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. But you real quick, you mentioned Damian Priest reminds you of Razor Ramon, and the first thing that popped into my head was I go, oh great, so he's going to get like 3 or 4 Intercontinental title reigns, and then all of a sudden go to AEW and become an alcoholic, and then find Diamond Dallas Page and turn his life around when he's older.
Hopefully not Razor Ramon in that sense, just the in-ring sense. And there are a lot of... Yes.
Oh, okay.
And there's...
I'm not thinking the other Razor Ramon, just go to Japan. And
exactly. Yeah. And there's a lot worse things than the in-ring side of Razor Ramon / Scott Hall. This is not a match that they...
I'm a huge Razor fan.
Yes. And by the way, on your oblique reference from before, I second that, and that any mogul worth his salt, if he employed an absolute 5-star effing genius who could turn this whole stupid promotion around, would normally, if he's that smart, let said genius do his thing. But this is Vince McMahon we're talking about. I hope that reference was oblique enough not to get him in any trouble. And may I say, I haven't talked to said genius in long enough to even, so I can't even say for a fact what's on his mind right now because it's been a while. But anyway, so hopefully I've absolved him from any trouble after I said what I just said there. But they won't be, by the way, calling this Bunny Mania. A, because they don't want to reference anything pre-PG era, and B, because Snoop Dogg, now AEW's Snoop Dogg, was involved in that. Having said that, at that same Mania 24, I think Maria Menounos, if I remember, went over one of their top heels. So any celebrity must go over any of the full-timers, basically. So Miz and Morrison flip a coin on who's doing the job. Probably Morrison. Morrison does all the jobs for that team.
True, but I think the whole thing is built up. The story is between Miz and Bad Bunny. I mean, it depends. And if they want to drag another month out of it and then do a singles match with Bad Bunny and Miz, then, Morrison does the job. If not, I see Miz laying down for the baddest bunny in the land. And Damian Priest, his buddy, who's lucky to be there.
Well, yeah, and that said, I mean, we can agree, right? I mean, if Miz is doing the JOB, it'll be Damian Priest sticking him with the finishing maneuver and pulling Bad Bunny on top. It'll be something like that, I think, just to give him minimal time.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Because Damian Priest has got to come out of this getting the rub. The other thrown together match here, the very definition of it, they had some kind of stupid tag team qualifier match. New Day is now the champions again. New Day, that's now in the year 2021. There's no more ironic name in the history of wrestling than these guys being called the New Day in 2021. They're going against AJ Styles and Omos, his gigantic, clownishly large bodyguard, who and this is one of these things where, going back, and we haven't even seen the guy wrestle, right? I don't want to be the guy to compare anybody to El Gigante / Giant Gonzalez, but the thing of it is like, when you're that big, and it was the curse that David Otunga had, having a freakishly muscular body, that, like, you have to be a main eventer if you're of a certain size or a certain build, or you don't have a place. It's all or nothing, basically. So unless this guy can be a future WrestleMania headliner, then they're wasting their time even having him in here, because you don't employ guys like that to have him in the mid-card. The exception was Great Khali, when they turned him into a buffoonish babyface, fun-loving babyface. Then you could have him get beat, and it wasn't a complete suspension of disbelief. But it was a way to get AJ Styles on the card, but it's like, this is the definition. This is the poster child for all the thrown together crap. There had to be a better way to get AJ Styles on the card than putting him in the middle of this.
You buried the lead there. Were you attacked by, did you encounter a lot of clown giants, like giant clowns when you were a kid? Because you said he was clownishly big.
Yes.
Out of all of the adjectives I can think of, I'm just sitting here thinking, going, clownish? Like, what kind of run-ins did giant clowns Ricky Morris have?
Freakishly, I guess, would be the word. Freakishly. This is what happens later in the day. My mind is sometimes scraping for words. Freakishly big is probably more of a conventional thing, but I mean, he's a guy where, I mean, especially when he's standing next to AJ, who's not the tallest guy in the promotion by any kind of a stretch of the imagination here. So it's like they're in a no-win situation, because if this guy does anything other than get in there and throw around New Day like there's no tomorrow and look completely invulnerable, then we're just wasting time here. You know what I mean? It's a trap with these guys that are that big, because it's all or nothing, Jake. You're either a main eventer in the making, or you're nothing.
You're absolutely right. You know what? We could use the 2021 Hall of Fame class on this one.
Yeah.
You're either Kane or you're the Great Khali.
Yeah.
There's no middle ground.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like there's but at the same time, that doesn't mean you can't make money. One of my favorite quotes ever by Kevin Nash was when they said how bad his work rate was, and how blah 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 and all this stuff, and he only had like 4 moves, and he was lazy, and his response was, "I got a house on the beach and it's paid for." And I'm just like, all right.
Well,
he worked something there on that one. But speaking of Kevin Nash, bringing it back into the point of this match here. Number one, when they announced this match, I didn't even know that the Hurt Business weren't the tag team champions anymore. I was like, wait, what? How did that happen?
Yeah.
Like, I thought, the Hurt Business were going to go in and they're going to have, like, this, the build seemed to be that, it's going to be like, hey, they're running the show.
Right.
And, like, even if you didn't have the Raw tag titles on the show, even if they're just standing with Lashley, like his fight team, that would look cool.
Right.
Everyone having championships. But alas, we are here now, and I have a feeling that this match is going to be booked. Because number one, you got AJ Styles, who's very meticulous when it comes to the stuff that he does on the big shows, and it's still arguably the best wrestler in the world. And him and Kofi is New Day, and I've got a feeling exactly what you described is what's going to go down. AJ's going to obviously do the majority of the work. Once Omos, or whatever his name is, I think it's Omos, I
think. I don't know.
Omos, okay. Once he gets in there, Omos, easy for me to say. Basically, New Day just bounces off of him and flies around. does one move, whatever his finishing move is going to be. And then what I would love to see after that, and a nice classic nod to Owen Hart for like him to wipe out New Day, and then AJ Styles to take the tag and run in like he's going to do a move and just be like 1, 2, 3. And I don't know if you remember WrestleMania 11 when Owen Hart was tag teamed with Yokozuna, and Yokozuna wiped out the smoking guns, and Owen Hart runs in like he's going to put whichever one, Billy or Bart, the sharpshooter. And then he's like, nah, screw it, just pin them. Something like that. I think it could be AJ Styles' character, and it'd be a nice little tribute that if you know it and you get it, it would fit within the context of the story too. And it would make almost look like $1 million, and he can hide behind him, but it gives AJ Styles something to do.
It would.
Sadly, right now, I mean, there's not really much. He's at that point now where they're just creatively, there's not that there's anything for him. It's just, I can't think of anywhere else. Like, I was sitting down booking, we all fantasy book in the lead to WrestleMania to see where things are going. And I was just writing up one day, and I didn't have a place on an AJ Styles on the card I came up with. And I'm like, whoa.
Well, yeah.
And it surprised me hearing back to, like, I listened to, like, maybe it was JR's podcast, and he mentioned, it was JR, so he mentioned that 17, they didn't have Triple H nor The Undertaker on the card. They were put on last minute. And if you remember back, their feud was just thrown together.
It was.
Because they didn't have them, either one of them on the card, and they were like, how do we have that much of an oversight? So it doesn't surprise me, because the same person who was doing it then are still doing it now.
But I mean, the thing of it is that even in a time of big star power then, they were still two of the biggest stars in the company. I mean, how you would forget both of them is really, really, really weird. I mean, I don't... mind-blowing. It is, isn't it? I mean, and it was easier to put together Manias in that day. You didn't have the brand split. You didn't have all these things. Again, no, AJ Styles he might as well be the poster child for the promotion right now. Creative has nothing for anybody. I mean, based on how everybody's been booked, based on what the lead up is.
Creative has nothing for creative.
Yes. I mean, that's and that's the thing. And with the exception of to harken back, with the exception of one guy that you and I have affection for. I'd like to see the whole lot of them loaded into a dumpster and carted out forever, basically. Because if this is the best you can do, this is just complete garbage. This is random as hell, Jake Digman.
It's not the best that they can do. It's the best that they can do for the one person they're doing it.
Right.
And nothing has come along to prove that's changed.
Well, right.
Right. I mean, it's still night and day when you look and you watch an NXT show, and you watch a main roster show, and it's like, how can you take these people that were just on the same company, just on a different show called different letters on it, and then all of a sudden it's like you get them to the main roster, if you were even going to call that anymore, and it's like they act like you've never seen them before.
Well,
and it's like, well, the audience is dumb. It's like, hey, we're going to give you this person, but we're going to change all those things you liked about them. We're changing them all.
Well, yeah.
What?
And that's the thing. This is random as hell. I'm going to actually make, believe it or not, our second WrestleMania 2 reference of the night. The match that could be a template for this one is, until I watched it, I never understood the buzz of the Bulldogs versus Dream Team match, but it was a great match. Yeah. And here's why. Because I was like, and with all due respect to a past show guest, I was like, how epic could any match with Brutus Beefcake possibly be? Here's how it was. In and out, quick tags, he goes on offense, he hits some moves, tags back out to the Hammer, lets the Hammer carry his end of the match. Awesome. That match was laid out just amazingly. They've suffered a lot in the layout of matches since then, even as the athleticism has skyrocketed. So, we'll see what this ends up being. I'm going to segue of the two matches that could be the main events for this one. And ironically, the one that's not the main event will probably open the show, because that's going to be as important Saturday night, because it's the first one in front of a live crowd. And Drew McIntyre was almost campaigning for this. Drew McIntyre, longtime WWE champion, who lost it recently in the convoluted thing. Lashley caused him to lose to The Miz on the cash-in. Lashley beats Miz. Basically, this is a deal here where there is no more hurt locker, hurt business, hurt whatever the hell you want to call it right now, because I think apparently they were starting to get afraid that the crowd might force a double turn here, that they might get behind Lashley. Because here's the thing, is that the way that they booked Lashley right around the whole thing of the Miz period here, they were booking Lashley as a pure ass-kicking babyface. He wasn't cheating. He was the one chasing down the sniveling heel. I mean, they basically retconned the way that there were some allusions to how he got Miz the title. But as far as Lashley getting Miz the title because he was too much of a chicken shit to go after Drew McIntyre, that got retconned out. And then it was like, OMG, we've booked Bobby Lashley so strong. He's talking about how long his ride to the top was. He was so ass-kicking. He was so sympathetic. He was so whatever. They're like, oh my God, how do we take it off him and put it back on Drew McIntyre? And so basically, my understanding is they broke up this whole Hurt deal just to try to make them look more lame, not as dominant, whatever. There's a chance that it's a swerve, and that, can you even imagine, I mean, if quote-unquote King Corbin ends up being the newest member here, and just because he wasn't specifically a member of the Hurt Business at the time that they were banned, that he cost McIntyre the title, I mean, this could still be shenanigans of some sort, but my guess is they broke up the Hurt Business as a way of smoothing the path for McIntyre to win it back and get the crowd reaction they're looking for.
I agree with everything you just said, and I hope none of that happens. Except for the part about King Corbin, because King Corbin is money. He has grown on me. And the fact that how much my girlfriend hates King Corbin, like, go away, Heat. And I follow his other page on Instagram. And it's a pretty cool follow. He's like, he's into whiskey and some scotch and steaks and whatnot. And it's just like, I'm showing her all this stuff. She's like, yeah, but he's still King Corbin.
Let me tell you something.
He's doing his job then. It's very rare that there's a heel in wrestling where people are like, I just hate him. Like, I don't want to say, I'm like, I absolutely, he's grown on me. I'm like, man, I dig your stick. Dude. You're a dick and you're cast perfectly.
I got to tell you something here. Just on the limited knowledge that I have of her takes, just the fact that she also loves Keith Lee as much as I do and hates King Corbin as much as I do. For somebody who's not as hardcore on this as you and I am inordinately impressed with your girlfriend's takes. She has very good taste on who she likes and doesn't like. I too loathe King Corbin and wish he would just stay off my screen. Turn the channel, Heat, in my estimation.
And you know what? That's him. Like I said, that's him doing his job. But, back to the matters at hand.
Yeah.
You gotta believe that, like, the entire build up, because I watched the last 15 minutes of Raw because I found out, I'm like, okay, they've been teasing this whole story, like, if you take out Drew McIntyre, you could be in the main event of WrestleMania. And I'm like, watching it, because you had to know why they tried to did this. It's in the back of your mind going, did they drop the Brinks truck and get Brock Lesnar in here and give it that big fight feel? Of course, that didn't happen. We're going into, the whole idea that Bobby Lashley, cost Drew his title and coming in, and everything that you said about what they did with Lashley because they're afraid he was getting too hot. You're absolutely correct. And the problem is, I don't care what they say. I firmly believe that live crowd is going to be almost 100% behind Bobby Lashley. Like, you could try to do all this stuff because, number one, he got over organically. Like, you look at all of the crap that they put him with. He had to do that stupid stuff, Lashley. He came back from Bellator. They've never once really gone into how much of a legitimate badass he is.
Right.
At, I think it's 13-2 or 14-2 or something like that. His MMA background. They've never really delved into that. They had him doing stupid crap with the whole Bono Rusev thing, which was just god awful. And then finally, when he matches up with MVP, and then they help do the Hurt Business, and he's the U.S. champion, and the fact that he didn't actually lose the belt, they did that screwy triple threat finish. I think it built this genuine, swelling of support. As a fan, I personally want to see Bobby Lashley win. Drew McIntyre beat him when he was the champion. I think it was Backlash last year, maybe. It was one of his first title defenses on pay-per-view. Drew won. Bobby Lashley wins this one. And then you can set up, your bunny match, your third match or whatever. You have him come back up through, and it leads Bobby Lashley down to a babyface role, and Drew becomes a heel out of this. Fine, It's just the problem is WWE they over babyface their badasses, and it's awful.
Yeah.
They did it, the only one they didn't do it with was Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock,
right?
Because they were neurotic and made a lot of money, and was basically just saying, no, we're doing this. And told them what was going on, and they're like, Vince is like, yeah, I like money, let's do this.
Well, here's the thing. I'm actually going to disagree with you on The Rock. Part of the reason they had to turn him in '03 was in '02, his act grew kind of simpering. Even The Rock was not immune to this. And that's the whole thing, is that, and Jake, I will not rest until in my life.
1 second.
Yeah.
1 second on that, though. As soon as they turned him in '03, he immediately became even more over as a babyface.
Yes.
Because he was doing all the things that you wanted to see him do again, and just like, I was at the Raw in Cleveland, where he lost to the Hurricane, I think.
Yeah.
And after the show, he's like, you can chant Rocky or you can chant Rocky sucks. And he's trying to heal up, but the crowd just kept cheering for him. He's like, well, if you're going to do it, fine, let's do it. If you smell whatever they left as a baby.
Yeah.
The crowd refused to boo him.
Sure. But that was, and I remember, and this is something that I'd commented on the show previously during one of the segments to our good friend Kyle Ross, and that was back in that period of time. I think it was the '02 Royal Rumble. It was post 9/11, and there was some kind of shirt about, those who want to bring evil to us, and it was like, it was so earnest and so white meat and so whatever, and so not The Rock. If you wanted to have a post 9/11 shirt, it should be something like, Bin Laden, you can stick it straight up your candy ass. It needed to be something like that in character, as opposed to.
All it would have to be is just a red, white, blue probable.
Basically, yeah. But that's the whole thing. Jake, I will not rest until in my lifetime it makes it into Webster's dictionary, my term that I have coined here. Vince McMahon, the white meatification of all baby faces. All baby faces have to be white meatified. And that's basically it. And Drew McIntyre has probably, if I'm grading on the curve, it's happened to him less than the average of big baby faces, but just that it happens at all is obscene, because he should just be out there, the things that got himself over. I'll tell you this, when they compare the journeys of them, and it's one of these things here, and it is weird, and right about the time that John Laurinaitis reassumes prominence in the talent relations department, these are two guys,
people power.
Yeah, people power. These are two guys from his era. Two of the guys in the mid to late 2000s where we were both like, ugh, these guys are getting a push. So there is a whole thing now of where they've come full circle and they've evolved and they've become two of the better guys on the roster. But this is not, in a Haas fight kind of a sense, which they're both promising in and out of character it's going to be. In that sense, I'm looking forward to it. But, it's not to say I'm looking forward to it without, any kind of qualification. It should be okay, I guess.
I kind of echo the sentiments on this. I like the matchup. I just really don't like how we got here. Personally, I think, the whole Miz cashing in thing was a sidestep. Hell, you could have still have him keep the Money in the Bank briefcase all the way through with, keep going, because he has until the thing. That didn't need to be involved. Personally, I would have much rather seen it as Drew as the champion defending against Bobby Lashley. And Bobby Lashley coming in and the whole idea of he lost the first time, so he's getting a rematch and hyped up like a fight.
Sure.
Like a big fight feel. Like they do with Brock fights. When
Yeah.
the Brock match, you get that big fight feel. You're not going to see hammerlock takedowns and tope suicida stuff. It's just going to be, we're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time.
Right.
Something like that. And I thoroughly enjoyed these two, McIntyre and Lashley's match back at, I think it was Backlash, like I said. That one was really, really good. I wanted Lashley to win that one, and quite frankly, I want Bobby Lashley to win this.
Yeah.
I think, the crowd will be behind him. I believe that. I feel that way. The crowd's, we're going to have two representatives there that are cheering for Bobby Lashley, being good old Adam Burr and Mike Church are going to be heading out to Tampa.
Good friends of yours, yep.
And quite a few others that are going to be there in the house live. And first time they're going to WrestleMania, so good on them. I hope they have a good time. But I just see, he's got to think he's going to be a very smart audience. And I don't know. I just see Bobby, for some reason, I picture Bobby Lashley retaining that championship.
Well, it'll be a swerve if they do that. I look at it more the conventional way. I'd rather they resume the journey with Drew McIntyre on top and see if anything can be done with him. So I look at it more in a sort of conventional sense, but should be a pretty good match. Again, hopefully it's at least a Haas fight. Lay it in, maybe a couple of bloody noses. That could redeem this a little bit. The match that I'm guessing that this one's going on first, and I'm guessing this other one's going on last. And quite frankly, this is one of these things where as much as we're hearing now about woke businesses and whatever, a lot of times, quite frankly, it's just playing to whatever you think the consumer base wants. That's what big business does. They go wherever they think the money is. And from a cynical, consumer standpoint here, chance to make history. Two women who just happen to be black women, great wrestlers, Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair, turn them loose in the main event Saturday night, and I'm thinking that's what's going to happen. Sasha Banks, the champion, who I have been saying for years, this is somebody who, when she first came up and the way the crowds were reacting to her spontaneously, I said at the time, I said, there's never going to be another, Rock or anything like that. But I thought she was kind of Rock-like in her, the ability to be, which we were talking about with The Rock before, the cool heel who, if he can hang on to that as a baby face, that's just gold. And Sasha Banks is basically, to my surprise, she's retained her assholishness, if you will, as a babyface here, and that's what the boss character should be. That's what got people cheering for her spontaneously in the first place. And based on, some nibblings of stuff behind the scenes through the years, perhaps some of the real Mercedes shining through into the character. I don't know that personally, but that's just what you'll hear people say. Jake Digman, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Very, very, very lovely lady. Wonderful human being.
Yes. No tongue in your cheek as you're saying that.
Big fan of her. Big fan of her on Mandalorian. No, I'll be totally genuinely honest. And she's got that Disney hookup. Good on her.
Yeah, and
Hey, as far as to what you're alluding to, I'll just say this: everybody is allowed to have a bad day, right?
Yeah, I guess so. And quite frankly, I've never let what was related back to me about that change my opinion, that I think she is a massive, massive star, one of the biggest ones that they have, and that they should be doing something big with. And after many years, this is not quite as bad as with Cesaro, because she was never as far down in the women's division as Cesaro was in the men's division vis-a-vis the main event scene. But it is a thing of, like, they decided in the last year to microwave her in the wake of the Bayley breakup and put her back on top. And much like Cesaro's now starting to get microwaved against Seth Rollins, she's been hot for a while on top here, and in a feud that a lot of people have been pointing towards, Bianca Belair included. And again, Bianca being an incredible athlete in her own right, somebody who has the charisma to be in there with Sasha Banks, and that whole kind of energy, if you will, between them. This is one that I think could really be, if it's the main event, it won't be a show stealer, but my money is on this one for best match of night one, regardless of where it is on the card. I think it's going on last, and from a marketing standpoint, at the risk of endorsing anything that Stephanie McMahon would be pushing as far as corporate philanthropy and that kind of stuff, I think it's the right move in a business sense. I think they'll do it. I think they'll be rewarded with a hell of a match for it.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said there. As far as going into it, it's like they've had a pretty steady build. I don't know. It kind of reminds me of almost like a little sister, big sister thing in a way.
Yes.
I don't know, kind of like that's kind of the vibe I get. Because here's the thing: Bianca Belair comes out, she skips down to the ring, and it's funny. I don't understand why I'm supposed to like her.
Yeah.
She doesn't really do anything to other than you got your. I'm pretty sure you got this title. You're in this position. Hey, she can work hard, but let's be honest, they all can do that.
Right.
I really think she's got this position because they just saw WrestleMania and EST and went, "Oh, that's too good not to market. Go." And then now they're in the opportunity with what you had mentioned earlier, how they can, how this will make them look for PR and outside the wrestling fan bubble. They can send this stuff out in press releases. Everyone's going to be like, "Oh wow." And if it is for that reasoning alone, then I go with. I see Bianca Belair winning the championship, so they can have that picture of her crying, holding the belt and whatnot. The former champion handing it to her, whatever, make it as big and grandiose as possible. Not my personal preference, but I can see them doing it. I don't hate Bianca Belair. I just don't. I'm indifferent. It's not like, oh, she's terrible or anything like that. It's just like, what's her thing?
No,
she's married to the guy. She's married to the guy on the Street Profit, and I saw her wrestle at the NXT show in Phoenix, and she wrestled Shayna Baszler, and they had an amazing match. And I was like, okay, she's fun. She can go. I'm like, but as far as the character work and everything, it's like she's the toughest, the strongest, the fastest. Like, okay, I just see her standing in the back wearing like a fake smile, baby face. She's got that Finn Balor syndrome that when Finn Balor had to smile for 3 straight years every time he came out, to the point where I'm like, smack that off of his face.
Yeah, no, I mean that's
like,
that's a great
what
point.
Do you call it? White meatification? Is that what you call it?
White meatification, yes, and
white meatification.
yes, no, and that's a good point because. Well, here's the thing, though. I think they're trying to differentiate because the EST character, in many, many ways, especially when the EST character is going to be a baby face, right? It's very similar to Sasha Banks. The boss character as a baby face. Well, right. Here's the thing. As a character, because it's somebody who's still an a-hole, but they're being an a-hole to the heels, basically. And there's a lot of similarities between the characters. And look, I'll go there on what you just sort of implied. It might just be that the WWE only knows how to write black females a certain way. I think that some of this is organic. Some of it's organic as far as the evolution of their characters, because both of them, it's the whole thing. They're very prideful. They're very strong. They're very, I'm the best. You ain't shit compared to me, that kind of thing. So
the match itself, and like it makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
it's like, and I love how there isn't like a definitive heel or baby face,
right?
Either, you know.
Yeah,
they're both kind of could go either. I mean, Sasha's done some more heel tendencies because you have to have that,
right?
But at the same time, it's like there isn't like neither one has like a full blown heel turn. I don't think.
No, although with the WWE, sometimes it's hard to tell. One of the things I will say is one of the coolest spots that any wrestler has these days. I think you know where I'm going with this. When Bianca works the braid in, okay, if she starts whipping somebody with it or whatever, that's badass, dude.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure at the NXT show I went to, Shayna Baszler choked her with it, which was great. Yeah, that's pretty good.
See, that's great too. It gets used against her. That's just a cool spot. I'm a fan of anything that is different as long as it doesn't suck. And that's one of the reasons, again, unlike a lot of the other old school fans, why I love most of the stuff in AEW that the Cornettes of the world are down on. Because a lot of the modern stuff, it's different, but I don't find it stupid. As long as it's not stupid and it's different, I love it. And for Bianca with the braid spots, it's different. Nobody else is doing it. I love it. And again, these are two of my favorites out of this division, and I'm glad to see them in this spot. I think the right move, like you said, is Bianca going over because, Sasha, she'd been beaten down to where none of her title reigns ever lasted. She's had a good title reign this time. It's not like she's going to look like a loser. She's never won at WrestleMania, mind you, but it's not like this is going to kill her. It'll help make Bianca. This could be the start of an epic rivalry between the two. I think Bianca goes over, fireworks, end of night 1. And I think that's what we're looking at here.